All right, ready to dive deep into Stoicism? We're going way beyond those inspirational, quote, memes you see everywhere.
Definitely much deeper.
Our goal, to really grasp how this ancient philosophy can, well, impact modern life.
Yeah, exactly.
Be using excerpts from the Daily Stoic as our guide. I think we're going to uncover some surprising connections, between those ancient thinkers and our own daily struggles.
I think you're right. Those Stoics, they were onto something. The Daily Stoic does a fantastic job of like bridging that gap. It brings that age-old wisdom to bear on modern problems, which we all have.
It's like they had a time machine, right?
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
get one thing straight. We're talking about Stoicism, but not just that grin and bear it stereotype. What's the real essence of it all? What's at its heart?
Yeah, you got it. The book does a great job of framing Stoicism not as some stuffy philosophy,
Hmm.
but as a practical toolkit.
I like that, a Atilka, very actionable.
Exactly. It's about giving you the tools to handle whatever life throws at you, not just theorizing about it. But weren't the Stoics known for being a bit, well, serious?
Yeah, I guess so, maybe a little. But even their critics, they saw the value in Stoicism. Even Schopenhauer, not exactly Mr. Sunshine and Rainbows,
Oh, no.
considered Stoicism to be like the peak of human rationality. Pretty impressive, huh?
Yeah, coming from him, that's high praise. So back to this toolkit idea. How does it all fit together? How's it structured?
Well, it really hones in on three main disciplines: perception, action, and will. They're like the foundation for a strong Stoic mindset.
That reminds me of that quote by Marcus Aurelius. Something about certainty of judgment, action for the common good, and an attitude of gratitude. He's basically outlining the Stoic approach to life, right?
Spot on. He really is. Certainty of judgment, that links directly to perception, right? How we view and understand things that happen. Action for the common good, well, that's clearly about our choices and what we do. And gratitude, well, that speaks to our will, our ability to choose our attitude, regardless of what's going on.
It's a powerful combo, that's for sure. Clear thinking, helpful actions, and a grateful heart. Seems simple enough. But let's be honest, staying focused and clear-headed in our world, it's a Herculean effort. It feels like I'm bombarded with information 24/7. It's nonstop.
And that's exactly what the Stoics were dealing with. They were trying to navigate a world full of distractions, too, just different ones.
Right, like what?
Think about all the gossip that must have been flying around ancient Rome, but they're tools for dealing with it.
Mm.
Self-control and clarity, and they're still relevant today more than ever, I'd say.
The book talks about addiction as a loss of freedom.
Really?
Yeah, the inability to abstain from things, and that really hit home for me. It's like everywhere you turn, something's trying to grab your attention.
Oh, I know.
Your phone, social media, the news, it never ends.
It doesn't. It's overwhelming. And that's where the Stoics would bring up hypolepsis.
Hypolepsis. Okay, that's a new one.
Yeah, it's the idea that we choose, which perceptions we let into our minds. We're not just passively absorbing everything. We have the power to decide what we actually engage with.
So it's not about tuning out the world completely.
No, not at all.
It's about being choosy about what we allow in.
Yeah.
Like being a curator of our own mental space.
Exactly. We get to curate our experience. And this idea of making conscious choices, it applies to how we see wealth and material possessions too. The book really debunks that myth that, money solves everything.
I'm with you on that. Remember that story about F. Scott Fitzgerald?
Mm-hmm.
How he thought the rich were fundamentally different from everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
And Seneca, who wasn't exactly poor himself,
Right. He knew a thing or two about money.
he argued that money can't fix what's broken inside.
Right.
Sure, it can change your circumstances, but it doesn't change who you are deep down.
Absolutely. You can't buy happiness, right? It's so easy to forget that, though.
It really is.
We're always looking for external fixes for internal struggles. We think, oh, if I just had that new car, that promotion, I'd finally be happy.
But it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. True happiness comes from within.
So it's not about rejecting wealth,
No.
but recognizing its limitations,
Mm-hmm.
shifting our focus from external stuff to, well, inner growth.
Exactly. And that brings us to that Stoic discipline of action,
Yeah, taking action.
Taking responsibility for the choices we make, focusing on what we can actually control.
So it's not about passively accepting whatever life throws at us.
No, not at all.
It's about actively shaping our lives through our choices and our actions.
Right. The book goes into Epictetus's 3 areas of training. desires, impulses, and assent.
Okay, break that down for me. Those sound a little intimidating.
It's actually not that complicated. Think of it like training your mind like an athlete trains their body.
Okay, mental fitness.
Exactly, mental fitness.
Hmm.
So instead of letting our desires run wild, we can, train ourselves to desire what's truly good for us, to act with the right motives, and to accurately assess situations. It's all connected.
So we're not just at the mercy of our whims. We can actually train our minds to work for us, not against us.
That's the idea. And this training, it helps us focus, be present too. The book actually compares it to Bill Belichick's do your job philosophy,
Wait, the famously stoic football coach?
the one and only.
What does that have to do with stoicism?
It's about focusing on what's right in front of you. Just like a football player has to execute their plays, not get distracted by the crowd or the pressure, imagine if we brought that same focus to our own work, to our own lives.
It would change everything, wouldn't it? Less stress, more effectiveness. We're constantly battling distractions. But what if we could train ourselves to do our job with that same laser focus?
Game changer, for sure. It's all about finding that inner stillness amidst, all the external chaos. I like how the book calls Stoicism medicine for the soul. It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Medicine for the soul. I love that. What does that look like in a practical way?
It's about healing ourselves from the stuff that poisons us from the inside.
Right.
Anger, jealousy, fear, all those things. Stoicism gives us tools to deal with them, tools to cultivate a more balanced, peaceful state of mind.
So it's not about suppressing those emotions completely. It's more about understanding them, where they come from, and learning how to handle them better.
Right, because we do have more control over them than we think.
Yeah, it's empowering to realize that.
It is, and so much of that control comes from understanding that our emotions, they're often driven by how we judge and perceive things.
So rather than just reacting on impulse,
Yeah, we can do better than that.
we can take a step back, look at the situation objectively, and then choose a more helpful way to respond.
Exactly. Control those knee-jerk impulses. Learn to think before you act. Create that pause between what happens and how you react.
It's like having an inner stoic coach whispering, pause, assess, then respond.
Yeah,
It's definitely more empowering than just letting your emotions run wild.
for sure. And this leads to the Stoic idea of seeking peace over conflict. They recognize that anger, yeah, it can be motivating in the short term.
It can get things done sometimes.
It can, but it comes with a cost. You get burned out, you get exhausted, it's unsustainable.
Like MLK Jr. said, hate is too great a burden to bear.
Exactly. And it's not just about external peace either. It's about nurturing that inner stillness, guarding it.
And I think that's where that quote from Marcus Aurelius comes in, right?
Yeah.
About guarding our perceptions, our respect, our trustworthiness, and our peace of mind. He's saying we need to protect our mental and emotional well-being as fiercely as we protect our physical safety.
I think you're right, he is. And that's super relevant today, don't you think? We're bombarded with so much information and stimulation. It's like we need mental bodyguards.
We do. The Stoics are reminding us to be careful about what we let in.
Absolutely.
Guard our mental space.
Yeah, just like we guard our homes.
This brings us to the idea of wanting little. The book makes this interesting point. It asks if our desires, the things we want so badly, are actually making us suffer more than they're making us happy.
Interesting.
We're constantly being told to want more, buy more, achieve more. But what if true freedom actually comes from wanting less?
Whoa.
That's a pretty radical idea, isn't it?
It is. It really goes against the grain of everything we're told. The book actually quotes Diogenes, the guy who lived in a barrel.
No way.
Yes, he said something about wanting nothing being a privilege. I'm not saying we all need to live in barrels, but it makes you think, right, maybe detaching ourselves from all those excessive desires could be, well, incredibly liberating.
Yeah, maybe you could. It's so counterintuitive, isn't it? It's like we're programmed to be dissatisfied, to always be striving for the next thing. But what if contentment isn't about getting more, but about wanting less?
That's an amazing insight. What if it's about shifting our focus, from always acquiring more to cultivating what's already inside us, to recognizing that true happiness, that peace of mind, it comes from within.
It's a powerful idea, for sure.
Yeah.
We've been focusing a lot on controlling our perceptions, our desires. But what about accepting things we can't control? Life throws some pretty nasty curveballs sometimes.
It does. It does.
The Stoics had some interesting things to say about that, too.
They did, and it's surprisingly liberating, their perspective. I remember that Marcus Aurelius quote where he says, "Circumstances have no care for our feelings."
Wow.
It's a blunt reminder, isn't it? The world doesn't revolve around us and how we feel.
So stop expecting it to. Life's going to happen. Things we don't like are going to happen. That's just reality.
It is reality, and fighting against it, well, it just makes us suffer more. The Stoics were all about accepting what we can't change and focusing our energy on what we can.
So instead of wasting energy, shaking our fist at the universe,
Yeah.
we can channel that energy into making better choices and taking action.
Exactly. And that leads to another key Stoic insight. A lot of our suffering actually comes from not the events themselves, but how we judge and interpret them.
It's not the event itself, but our reaction to it that causes the pain.
You got it. It's our thoughts and beliefs about the event that fuel our suffering.
So it's like becoming your own therapist,
Hmm.
challenging those negative thought patterns and replacing them with something more helpful.
Exactly. It's empowering because it means we have more control over our emotions than we might think. Our opinions, they fuel our anger, our sadness, our anxiety. Take a step back, examine those opinions, question them. Are they really true?
This is getting deep, but I like it.
Yeah.
So this is all about cultivating indifference to things outside our control.
You got it. Now, don't get the wrong idea. It's not about becoming apathetic or suppressing your emotions.
Okay, good. Because when I hear indifference, it sounds a bit cold, unfeeling.
It's more about detachment, a strategic detachment from what we can't actually change. If we can't influence it, why get worked up about it? It just adds to our suffering.
Right. It's about letting go of that need to control everything, focusing on what we can influence, which is mainly our own thoughts, actions, and judgments.
Exactly. It's like that analogy in the book,
Yeah.
about a child dropping treats from a jar to free their hand.
Yeah, I remember that.
Sometimes we need to let go of desires, things we're clinging to really find freedom and peace.
Wow, it's a powerful image. Sometimes we're so busy grasping at what we want, we don't see the bigger picture. We need to drop those desires, those attachments, to free ourselves from suffering.
That's a profound way to put it. And it leads perfectly into another key Stoic principle, unity.
Yeah.
The Stoics believe that we should be, whole and integrated in our actions and beliefs.
Okay, so it's not just about thinking the right thoughts.
Nope.
It's about aligning those thoughts with our actions, walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
You got it. It's about living according to our values, being consistent. The Stoics always ask themselves, am I living by my principles or am I letting outside pressures dictate my life?
Living authentically, being true to yourself, that's a tall order in a world that's constantly trying to mold us into something we're not.
You're telling me. That's why the Stoics were so big on protecting our minds from outside influences. It's like protecting our physical well-being.
We lock our doors, wear seatbelts, eat healthy food. But what about protecting our minds?
Right.
We're constantly being fed information, opinions, agendas, all of it designed to, like, hijack our thoughts and emotions. It's overwhelming.
It's like an information overload. The Stoics were really emphasizing the importance of choosing our influences carefully. Being picky about what we let shape our thoughts.
So true. It's like that idea that we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Surround yourself with negativity, it's going to seep in. Surround yourself with people who lift you up,
Oh, I love that.
and you're more likely to rise with them. It's not about being judgmental. It's about protecting your own well-being.
Absolutely. Choosing your companions wisely, creating that positive space. And, this also connects to the Stoic emphasis on understanding, other people's mistakes.
Wait, how can we understand, let alone excuse, hurtful actions?
It's not about excusing anything, it's about understanding where it comes from. The Stoics believe that most mistakes come from, well, ignorance, not from malice. They reminded us that everyone's doing the best they can with the knowledge and understanding they have.
So approach others with a little more empathy,
Exactly.
realizing their actions might be coming from flawed thinking, not intentional cruelty. We're all works in progress, after all.
We are, aren't we? Give people the benefit of the doubt. We're all on this journey of learning and growing together.
It's a powerful perspective shift, and it challenges us to be more honest and self-aware about our own actions and motivations too, doesn't it?
It really does. And it brings us to the trap of self-deception. The Stoics saw that as, well, an enemy of growth.
We can't learn if we think we already know everything.
Right. We need to be honest with ourselves about our shortcomings, the areas where we can improve.
And be open to new perspectives.
Exactly. Which brings us to this beautiful idea the Stoics had, the beauty of choice.
Okay, now that sounds intriguing. What's so beautiful about choice?
It's about remembering that we always have the power to choose how we respond, regardless of what's happening around us. They use the word hypolepsis
There it is again.
to explain how we sort of take up perceptions and judgments in our minds.
So it's not the external event itself that dictates our emotions, it's our own interpretation of it.
Hmm.
We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we react.
You got it. We have way more agency than we realize. And that leads us to another empowering Stoic idea, standing strong in the face of adversity. The book has so many inspiring examples of people who faced incredible challenges with resilience and determination.
Like President James Garfield,
Yeah,
navigating a deeply divided nation.
exactly.
I love that quote of his,
Yeah.
about being ready to face whatever comes next, without fear, without hesitation.
Powerful, right.
It really speaks to his inner strength.
And that inner strength, it's available to everyone. It's about cultivating a Stoic mindset, a way of looking at the world that empowers you to face challenges with courage and grace, without getting swept away by fear or despair.
So it's not about pretending that everything's okay.
No.
It's about facing those challenges head on with resilience.
Yes. Believing in your ability to navigate difficult situations and come out stronger on the other side.
I like that. And I think that resilience often goes hand in hand with embracing simplicity and contentment, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. The book explores that a lot. It challenges us to rethink our pursuit of happiness, to consider whether true freedom might actually come from letting go of those excessive desires instead of trying to satisfy all of them.
Right, finding freedom and wanting little. It goes
Yeah.
against that whole more is always better mentality we're bombarded with all the time.
It does, doesn't it? It asks us, are our desires really leading us towards happiness? Or are they taking us further away from it? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? The book brings up Diogenes again, with his famous quote about wanting nothing being a privilege. Again, not saying we all need to live in barrels, but it highlights a point. Maybe detaching ourselves from those excessive desires could be the key to a more content life.
Maybe it is. We're constantly told we need more to be happy. But what if true happiness comes from recognizing the abundance we already have?
That's a beautiful way to look at it. It's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we already possess, cultivating gratitude for the simple things, the things we often overlook in our pursuit of more.
Okay, this is all good in theory.
Yeah.
But let's be real. Contentment, acceptance, it's a lot easier said than done when life throws those curveballs, right?
Oh, tell me about it. But that's where the true power of Stoicism comes in. It's not just some airy-fairy philosophy. It's a practical way to handle the messy reality of being human.
So how do we bridge the gap between theory and practice? How do we actually apply these Stoic principles to our daily lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we'll be exploring in the rest of our deep dive.
All right, I'm ready. I'm already feeling a shift in perspective, like a new way to approach life's challenges.
That's awesome. I'm excited to dig deeper with you. Let's get into those practical tools and techniques that Stoicism has to offer. So, ready to explore the practical side of Stoicism a little more.
Absolutely. I feel like we've got a good foundation now with those core principles. Now let's see how they play out in real life.
All right. Well, one thing that really struck me in the book was this idea of resisting social pressure. That whole thing about trying to impress others, especially when those people, well, maybe they're not so impressive themselves.
It's true, isn't it? We chase approval from people we don't even like just for that little hit of validation.
Right. And it's so fleeting. I loved how the book quoted Fight Club. We buy things we don't need to impress people you don't like. It's like a punch in the gut.
It is. It's a good reminder to focus on what actually matters to us, not what everyone else thinks we should care about.
Exactly. Living authentically, following your own compass. And that's where applying reason in all things comes in. Another big Stoic theme.
Oh yeah, using reason to guide our actions, even when things get heated. It makes sense.
It does.
But it's so much easier said than done, right?
Right. It takes practice. It's not like you flip a switch and suddenly you're Mr. Spock. The Stoics, they believed in exercising that reason muscle constantly. Pause before you react, try to see the situation clearly, and then choose your action based on careful thought, not just knee-jerk emotion.
So creating that space between stimulus and response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That space is where wisdom lives. And this idea, this reasoned approach, it extends to how we interact with people in positions of power, too.
Okay, like bosses, leaders, that sort of thing.
Yeah. The book really emphasizes staying grounded, being humble, no matter how high up you climb.
That's where that Marcus Aurelius quote comes in handy, right? Keep yourself simple, good, pure, saintly.
That's the one. It's like, don't let power go to your head.
A message we could all use, probably.
Seriously. It applies to everyone, not just CEOs and politicians. We all have a little power in our own lives. The Stoics remind us that, hey, we're all just humans, no matter what our title or accomplishments are.
Treating everyone with respect, regardless of their social status, because everyone has inherent worth.
Exactly. And I think that awareness can really help us navigate those inevitable encounters with negativity,
Yeah.
which the book gets into in a very practical way.
I loved that Marcus Aurelius exercise
Hmm.
about mentally preparing yourself for those, unavoidable run-ins with difficult people.
Oh, yeah, those are the worst.
He's basically saying, hey, you're going to come across those people who are ungrateful, rude, selfish, just plain cranky. It's going to happen.
It is. People are messy. But his advice, don't let it ruin your day. Don't let their negativity trigger your negativity.
Easier said than done.
Right. But remember, he says, their behavior. It comes from their own ignorance, their own struggles. It's not about you.
Wow, that's a real shift in perspective. It's like instead of blaming them, you choose compassion. Their negativity is a reflection of their internal state, not yours.
You got it. And this ties into that stoic practice of testing our impressions. Don't just accept your initial judgment as truth, question it.
Like that quote, examine each impression and determine whether it's within our control. If it's not, then it's nothing to me.
Epictetus, he was a master at distilling wisdom, wasn't he?
He was. So it's about separating what we can influence from what we can't, and then focusing our energy on what we can.
Exactly. Less stress, more peace of mind. And that leads to questioning our assumptions too, which the book really digs into.
Oh yeah, challenging those deeply held beliefs about what we think will make us happy, especially when it comes to wealth.
Right, because so often wealth doesn't actually deliver. The book uses that great example of how, even rich people, they aren't magically happier. It's a good reminder that lasting fulfillment comes from within, not from stuff.
So true. We're sold this idea that more money equals more happiness, but it's just not that simple, is it?
It's not, and that's why it's so important to be open to changing our minds. As we learn and grow, we shouldn't be afraid to let go of beliefs or opinions that we've held for a long time.
I like that story about Epictetus changing his mind about travel. Even a great Stoic philosopher could evolve.
Exactly. It shows us that we should never stop learning, questioning our assumptions,
Yeah.
and be open to changing our minds when we're presented with new information or perspectives.
It's like a lifelong process, right? Embracing that journey of learning, knowing that our understanding of the world is always evolving.
I love that. And part of that journey is learning to look at things from different angles, which the Stoics were big on, especially in tough
Oh
situations.
yeah, when we're in the middle of something difficult, it's easy to get tunnel vision, isn't it?
Totally. You only see things from your own limited point of view.
But the Stoics are saying, hey, step back. Try to see the situation from multiple perspectives. What other factors are at play? What are the other person's motivations? Maybe there's a different way to interpret this whole thing, one that leads to a better outcome.
You got it. Moving beyond that ego-driven perspective, trying to see the bigger picture, the whole story. It's about understanding, not just reacting.
And I think that leads us to the whole idea of understanding the true cost of doing wrong, which the book explores in a fascinating way.
It's not just about the external consequences, right? It's about the internal turmoil that comes with making unethical choices. Remember that example with the child who lies?
Yeah, and then confesses. We've all been there, trying to hide something we've done wrong.
Yeah.
And that guilt, that anxiety, way worse than any punishment we might have gotten.
It really is. And it reminds us that our actions have consequences, both inside and out. And that true peace of mind comes from living a life that's in alignment with our values.
So it's not just about not getting caught. It's about living in a way that you can be proud of.
Exactly. Making choices you can live with. Choices that don't chip away at your self-respect.
This is powerful stuff.
It is. And this leads us to, well, one of the most challenging, but ultimately rewarding Stoic principles: responding to hate with love.
Oh, okay, that's a tough one. How can we possibly respond with love when someone's being hateful?
I know, it's incredibly hard. But the Stoics believed that fighting fire with fire only makes things worse.
So break the cycle.
Yeah. Meet negativity with something else, with compassion, with understanding.
Remember that image from Marcus Aurelius about heaping burning coals on someone's head by responding to their hatred with kindness?
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful image.
It really gets you thinking about the transformative power of compassion, doesn't it?
It does, and it's not about being a doormat or condoning bad behavior. It's about recognizing that the person acting out of hate, well, they're probably hurting themselves too.
It's about choosing a different path, a path of understanding.
Exactly. Seeing the humanity in everyone, even when it's hard. Choosing to be a force for good, not adding to the darkness. And this takes us to another core, Stoic principle. True happiness comes from your own virtuous actions, not from external validation or things.
It reminds me of that Marcus Aurelius quote, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, then your life will flow well."
Love that one. It's about accepting what is, finding contentment in the present moment.
So we don't give up on our goals,
No.
but we recognize that true happiness, it comes from within, from making good choices, finding joy in the journey itself.
Beautifully said. Focus on internal growth, not just external achievements. Cultivate lasting contentment, not fleeting pleasures.
Okay, that all makes sense. But how do we actually make the most of our time when it feels like we're constantly rushing, constantly on the go?
That's where that stoic emphasis on living a full and meaningful life comes in, no matter how long or short it might be. And not wasting time, for sure.
Right. Like that Seneca quote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." It's like, whoa, wake up call. We have more time than we realize, but we squander it.
It's true. The Stoics were all about being intentional, about choosing to spend our precious time on things that truly matter, savoring each moment.
So not just trying to cram more into our schedules.
No, it's about quality, not quantity.
Spending time on the things that nourish us, bring us joy.
Yes. And this mindfulness about time, it applies to our relationships too. The book has some great insights about that.
I loved the part about finding freedom from needing approval. It's so easy to get caught up in what other people think of us. We let their opinions dictate our lives.
It's a common trap. But the Stoics were like, nope, true freedom comes from knowing yourself, loving yourself, and trusting your own judgment. Don't hand over your power to anyone else.
That Marcus Aurelius quote about anger, how the consequences of anger are more grievous than the cause of it. It's like, oh yeah. So often it's our reactions that create more suffering, not the events themselves.
It is, it is. And that ties into finding meaning in our work, which was another big Stoic theme.
Right. Finding fulfillment in
Yeah.
what you do, even when it's challenging, even when it's not your dream job.
Exactly.
Mm.
Approach it with a spirit of service. Remember that even seemingly mundane tasks, they can contribute to something bigger. It's about finding dignity and purpose in all that we do.
So it's not about loving every minute of your job.
No.
It's about connecting it to something bigger, seeing how your work contributes.
Yes. And that can make all the difference, can it? It can combat that feeling of meaninglessness that so many people struggle with, when their work feels disconnected from their values.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about finding meaning in work, but what about the danger of overworking? I think a lot of us struggle with that. I know I do. That whole hustle culture, sacrificing our well-being in the name of productivity.
Oh, yeah, the burnout trap. And the Stoics were aware of that even back then. The book really cautions against letting work take over your life. There's more to life than just, checking things off your to-do list.
Right. That Seneca quote always gets me. Is it really so pleasant to die in harness? Like, whoa, reality check. We're not meant to be working ourselves to death.
It's a good question to ask yourself. Are you living a balanced life? Are you taking care of yourself? Rest, play, connection, just being. Those things matter.
Yeah, they do. Finding that balance, right, between striving and resting, between doing and being. It's not all about achievement. It's about nurturing all parts of ourselves.
Exactly. And that leads us to the Stoic practice of, evaluating our efforts, taking a step back, looking at what we're doing, and asking ourselves, what's the point?
So easy to get caught up in that busyness trap, thinking that if we're busy, we're being productive. But are we?
Right, good question. Are we working towards something that truly matters, or are we just spinning our wheels, caught up in the illusion of productivity?
It's about checking in with ourselves, being honest, and making sure our actions are actually aligned with our values.
Living with intention, not just reacting. And this brings us back to one of those foundational Stoic ideas. Our primary obligation is to be good people.
What is your vocation? To be a good person. That Marcus Aurelius quote is so simple, yet so profound. It gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it?
It does. It strips away all the complexities and reminds us what really matters, our character, our choices, our actions. That's what truly defines us, not our job titles or our possessions or our accomplishments.
Right. prioritizing inner growth, living a virtuous life.
Embodying wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Those classic Stoic virtues.
And finding that path that's right for us, which the book explores using Odysseus's journey as an analogy.
Oh, yeah. Odysseus, the ultimate adventurer. He faced so many challenges, so many setbacks on his way home, but he never gave up.
He embodied that stoic resilience, never giving up on your goal even when the path is uncertain, full of obstacles. It reminds us that life's a journey, not a destination. The challenges we face, they're opportunities for growth and transformation.
Beautifully said. And the Stoics believe that this journey, it's often best navigated with mentors and guides to help along the way.
That makes sense. It's easy to feel like we have to figure everything out on our own.
It is. But why do that when there are so many wise people who have gone before us? Books, biographies, mentors, there's so much wisdom to tap into.
So it's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, right?
Yeah,
It's okay to ask for help, and that seeking guidance from those who have walked the path before us can really help us grow.
absolutely. And it takes humility to admit we don't know everything, that we can benefit from others' experiences.
It can be tough to ask for help, though, can't it?
Yeah.
We think we have to have it all figured out.
Totally. But the Stoics were like, no way, asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. It's recognizing that we're all connected and that we can achieve so much more when we support each other.
It's about building community, sharing wisdom and experience,
Yeah.
and that leads to the importance of, choosing your battles wisely.
Oh, yeah, big one.
I fall into that trap all the time. I want to fight every battle, right every wrong.
I know what you mean. It's tempting.
But the Stoics are reminding us, hey, not every battle is worth fighting. We have limited time and energy.
Exactly. You got to be strategic with those resources. Focus on the battles that truly matter, the ones where you can make a real difference.
The ones that align with your values, where you have the best chance of making a positive impact.
Exactly. And the ones that won't drain you, leave you exhausted. Be effective, not just reactive. And this brings us back to that core Stoic principle, focusing on what we can control. It seems like it pops up everywhere in the book.
It does. That's the key, isn't it? To finding peace and freedom in a world that can feel so out of control.
Absolutely. Our thoughts, judgments, actions, those are the things we can actually influence.
The book reminds us that those are the foundation for living a good life.
It's such a powerful message. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it.
And that's how we cultivate inner peace,
Yeah.
right? No matter what's happening around us.
Exactly. True freedom comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering your own inner world.
And that mastery, it's a lifelong process.
For sure. It's not a one-time thing. It's a journey of self-improvement.
The book really pushes us to approach our own growth with the same dedication we might apply to our careers.
Totally. It's like your inner world is your most valuable asset. Invest in it.
I love that. So
Yeah.
invest in yourself, work on yourself, and part of that work involves, simplifying our lives.
Oh, yeah. Getting rid of the excess, both material and mental. The book talks about that a lot.
I love Marcus Aurelius's rules for living. So
Mm.
simple, so clear. Avoid procrastination, confusion, wandering thoughts, passivity, aggression, and being consumed by business. It's like a roadmap to a less stressed, more fulfilling existence.
It is. Get rid of the distractions, the unnecessary commitments, all the mental clutter. Make space for what truly matters.
It's not about becoming a minimalist or anything, but just being more intentional.
Exactly. What do you really need in your life? What truly serves you?
And that intentionality, it extends to how we influence others, too.
Right. Leading by example. Our actions speak volumes, don't they?
Remember that story about how young people imitate those they admire? It's like, oh, wow, we're always setting an example, whether we realize it or not.
We are. It's a big responsibility. Be mindful of your influence. Embody those virtues, those qualities you want to see in the world.
Lead with integrity, compassion, wisdom.
Yes. And remember, we're all leaders in our own way. Our actions can lift people up or drag them down.
Choose to be a force for good. And that choice leads us to another Stoic principle, doing the right thing, even when it's tough. It's about making choices that align with your values, regardless of the consequences.
Integrity.
I love that Marcus Aurelius quote, just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter. So simple, but so powerful. Focus on doing what's right, what your conscience tells you, no matter what anyone else says.
Powerful. Choosing the path of virtue, even when it's the hard path. And that ties into the Stoic approach to accepting what is another recurring theme in the book.
Right, like that story of the Spartan king who lost his son in battle.
Oh, wow, yeah.
When someone asked if he grieved, he just said, yes, but I am a Spartan.
Mm,
He understood that loss and suffering are part of life, you know, and his commitment to living by his values, even in the face of such a devastating loss. It's amazing.
that's true Stoic strength, isn't it? Recognizing that life has joys and sorrows. Loss and suffering are inevitable. What matters is how we respond to those challenges.
So it's not about denying your feelings.
Yep.
It's about accepting what is, allowing yourself to feel the pain, but then moving forward with grace and dignity.
Finding that inner strength that allows us to weather the storms without being broken by them. And I think that inner strength comes from remembering our place in the universe.
That's a big one.
Yeah. The book uses the metaphor of a play, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Our lives are just acts in a much larger drama, our roles are temporary. It's a humbling thought, right?
It is, but also kind of liberating.
Right, like it allows us to let go of all that ego stuff, those anxieties and attachments. Just focus on playing your part well, knowing that the world will go on with or without you.
Shifting our focus from me to we, right?
Yeah.
From our own little world to the bigger picture.
Exactly, we're all connected. And that leads to the realization that our real strength lies in our judgments, our ability to make good decisions about the things we can control.
Right, like the book says, we have the power to let go of those negative judgments. We're not victims of our circumstances or our emotions.
Well, I always have a choice.
Choose how you respond, reframe your perception, find meaning, even in the difficult times.
Exactly. And that power allows us to overcome adversity. That story of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and how he dealt with polio, it's such a powerful example.
Oh, yeah. He chose to see his disability as a challenge to overcome, not a limitation.
He refused to let it define him.
That's true. Stoic resilience, right there. Even in the face of such adversity, he found meaning, he found purpose.
And made a huge impact on the world. And that impact is often even greater when we embrace that Stoic principle of accepting other people's imperfections.
That's a tough one, isn't it?
It is, but so important.
We're so quick to judge others, to focus on their flaws.
We are. But the Stoics remind us that everyone has flaws. We're all works in progress, you know? Judging others just adds to our own suffering. I love that Epictetus quote. Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. It's a great reminder that we can't control everything. All we can control is our response to what happens.
Letting go of those expectations, choosing acceptance.
Yes, exactly.
To choose compassion over judgment, choose understanding over criticism, choose acceptance over resistance. We're all in this together, flaws and all.
Beautifully put. And this brings us to one of the most practical tools the book offers. It's something called the 4 Habits of the Stoic Mind.
Okay, I'm listening. I need these habits in my life.
They're simple but powerful. First, accept only truth. Second, act for the common good. Third, control your desires and aversions. And fourth, embrace what nature assigns you.
It sounds like a recipe for a good life, you know.
It really is. And they all build on each other.
Accepting truth means being honest with yourself, challenging your own beliefs, being open to new ideas. Acting for the common good means considering how your actions impact others, not just yourself.
Right. And controlling your desires and aversions. That's all about recognizing that true happiness doesn't come from external things. Let go of that constant craving for more. Be content with what you have.
And embracing what nature assigns us means accepting the things we can't change. Finding peace in the present moment, knowing that life has its ups and downs. Our power is in how we choose to respond.
You've got it. So these 4 habits, they offer a framework for living a more intentional, virtuous, and fulfilling life. A way to navigate all the complexities of being human with grace, wisdom, and resilience.
It's a beautiful framework. And it all seems to point back to the importance of living in the now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's a big Stoic theme. I love that quote from Chrysippus about virtue. The value of virtue practiced for a moment or a lifetime is the same. It reminds us that every moment counts. Every moment is a chance to make good choices, experience joy, and make a positive impact.
Every moment is an opportunity. It's not about waiting for some future moment to be happy, you know? It's about recognizing that happiness is available to us right now if we choose to see it.
So cultivate that sense of presence, appreciate the simple things.
Yes. Be grateful for this life even when things are tough. And that presence, it helps us detach from external things, another big Stoic idea.
Right. The book talks a lot about how being attached to things we can't control, whether it's wealth, fame, possessions, even relationships, it actually threatens our freedom.
It does. It holds us back.
True security, true contentment, those come from within.
Exactly. You have everything you need inside yourself to be happy. Cultivate inner peace, inner resilience. You don't need to chase those external things, those fleeting pleasures.
And that inner peace, it helps us control our anger too.
For sure. The book has some practical advice for that, too. Being aware of what triggers your anger, stepping away from situations that are likely to escalate your emotions.
I like that Seneca quote. Always shun that which makes you angry. It's simple, but it works.
It does. Choose your battles, protect your peace.
Not about suppressing anger, but about channeling it in a healthy way, or just letting it go.
Exactly. And this leads us to that Stoic concept of embracing our destiny, which can be a bit confusing.
Yeah, it can sound a little like give up and let fate decide. But that's not what they meant, is it?
Not at all. It's about recognizing that some things are just out of our control. Illness, loss, natural disasters, we can't stop them from happening.
The book uses that analogy of a dog tied to a cart. We can choose to walk alongside it willingly, or we can get dragged. Resisting what's inevitable, it just makes it harder.
It's such a vivid image, isn't it? Choosing acceptance, even when it's tough.
Yeah.
We actually have more agency when we align ourselves with the flow of life, rather than fighting against it.
So it's not about giving up on your goals, but about being flexible.
Exactly.
But recognizing that the path might be winding, that there might be detours along the way.
Life's unpredictable. Be ready to adjust course. And that brings us to the Stoic practice of living each day as if it were your last.
I love that idea.
It's about making the most of each moment,
Seneca said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing."
It's a powerful reminder that our time is precious, isn't it?
It is. Don't waste it. Live with purpose, with intention, with a deep appreciation for every single day.
And don't be afraid to go after your dreams.
So, not about living recklessly, but about living with passion, with purpose, with that awareness that each day is a gift.
Exactly. And this all ties into facing our fear of death, which the book tackles head on.
The Stoics weren't afraid to talk about death, were they? They saw it as a natural part of life.
They did. They encouraged us to actually think about it, not to be morbid, but to help us live more fully.
That quote by Seneca, "You are afraid of dying, but come now, how is this life of yours anything but death?"
It makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Are we really making the most of our time?
It does. It's a wake-up call. Stop sleepwalking. Savor every moment. Make choices that reflect what truly matters to you.
So, not obsessing about death, but using that awareness to motivate you to live a more meaningful life.
Exactly. And you know what often comes with that? A deeper appreciation for the simple things. The little things.
The book uses that example of a child, just purely delighted by playing with a ball.
It's so true.
It's a reminder to find joy in those everyday moments, those simple pleasures. Yeah. Cultivate that sense of wonder, Appreciate the things we so often take for granted. Recognize the abundance all around us.
Shifting our focus from what we don't have to what we do have.
Right. From chasing what we think will make us happy to finding happiness in the present moment.
Okay, that all makes sense. And this appreciation for the present moment, it's essential for grieving in a healthy way, too.
Oh, definitely. The book talks about that in a really beautiful way.
The Stoics weren't about suppressing your emotions when you're grieving. They were about facing those feelings, honestly.
They were. Allow yourself to feel the pain, to process it authentically. Don't try to run from it or numb it out.
Honor your emotions. Don't fight them.
Exactly. It's a process, Give yourself time. And through that process, you actually cultivate inner strength.
Yeah, the book talks about that, too. True confidence comes from within, not from external validation.
It does. It's about recognizing your own worth, your own resilience.
Knowing that you have the power to choose your response to any situation.
Exactly. I love that Epictetus quote about happiness. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. Focus on what you can control, and let go of the rest.
That's so powerful. Our true power isn't about controlling the world around us, but about mastering our own inner world.
That's it. Cultivate that inner peace that can't be shaken by external events.
And that leads us to that analogy about living like a healthy person who doesn't worry about being sick all the time.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
It's about adopting that same mindset in all areas of life, focusing on what you can control, letting go of those anxieties about things you can't,
Trusting in yourself.
trusting in your ability to handle whatever life throws at you.
And trusting that life, even with its challenges, is inherently good. And that trust allows us to dream big, to envision a future that's full of purpose and meaning, where we can actually make a positive impact on the world.
And this trust allows us to dream big, to envision a future filled with purpose and meaning, a future where we can make a positive impact on the world. That brings us to this beautiful concept of leaving a legacy, a theme the book explores with inspiring depth.
Yeah, it's a beautiful idea. It's like, what mark do you want to leave on the world? What will people remember you for? The book uses that analogy of a sculptor carefully shaping a piece of art that will last, even after they're gone.
So it's not just about our own achievements.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about contributing to something larger than ourselves.
Right, something that will outlive you, continue to make a difference.
And I think that leads us to another powerful Stoic practice, confronting our own mortality. Not in a morbid way, but in a way that inspires us to live more fully, more purposefully.
I agree. It's not about being obsessed with death, but about using that awareness of our own limited time to motivate us.
To make the most of it. That Seneca quote always gets me. You are afraid of dying, but come now. How is this life of yours anything but death?
Yeah.
It's like a slap in the face, in a good way.
It is. It's a wake-up call. It's like, are you just going through the motions? Or are you truly embracing this precious gift of life?
So powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that awareness of our mortality, it actually inspires action. It makes you want to stop procrastinating and really start living the life you want right now.
Absolutely. No more excuses. The book really pushes us to stop putting things off and start living in line with our values today.
Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. It's like, mic drop. We have the power to shape our own lives.
We do, and the time is now.
This has been such an amazing deep dive into Stoicism. We've covered so much. As we wrap things up, what are the key takeaways you hope people will walk away with?
The biggest one for me is, we always have a choice. We can choose to let our emotions run the show, blame others, feel like a victim, or we can choose to embrace these Stoic principles, live with more intention, more awareness, more resilience.
It's about recognizing that true freedom, true happiness, they come from within, not from external things.
Exactly. Take responsibility for your own thoughts, your actions, your judgments.
Align your life with your values. Find peace in the present moment and make a positive impact on the world. It's a journey.
It is. It's not always easy, but it's so worth it. And you know what I love about Stoicism? Anyone can do it. You don't need to be a scholar, a philosopher. It's for everyone.
It's about those simple practices. Focus on your breath, take time to reflect, choose kindness, remember what you can control, just one step at a time.
Exactly. Build that Stoic mindset little by little.
And it's a journey we can all take.
We can. So what really resonated with you from everything we talked about? What stood out?
I think, for me, it was that emphasis on the interconnectedness of all things. It's a powerful reminder that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves. Like that Marcus Aurelius quote, meditate often on the interconnectedness and mutual interdependence of all things in the universe.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's a call to recognize that web of life that connects us all, to see the inherent worth in every being, and to act with compassion and understanding. We're all in this together.
We are. And our actions, they have a ripple effect. Our choices matter. Even the small things, they can make a difference.
It's a message of hope. We're not alone, and we have the power to create a better world, a more just world, a more compassionate world, a more fulfilling world.
Even amidst the chaos, there's hope, there's growth, there's always the opportunity to make a difference.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Stoicism. I hope you found it valuable and inspiring.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep seeking out those nuggets of wisdom that help you live a more meaningful life.